Yeah, if everyone could get into the GS room now, it would be great. Kartik will join us shortly.
So to move around.
Yes, I'll be there in a second.
Just click these two side things together. Pull them apart. Keep hold of them at the side. Pull them apart. Make this kind of make yourself large or small. We'll zoom in. If you kind of do like a swimming motion, kind of pulls you away. Can I move around the room a little bit? Is that well, we're going to do an intro now, so you can see, so hopefully you can ask questions. Now I'll go through the tools and controls. Thank you.
Jenny is roller derby
Yes.
Okay, so it's like you move
A ty z ptaszkiem to było? Co naszym?
The navigation on the screen version is not so.
There's no teleport, so you just use your two inside things.
Has everyone managed to get inside the GS room?
I think so. We have around 10 people inside.
Yeah, I'm just joining. It's running me through the Gravity sketch setup for some reason.
Patrzysz, o standard wokalu, wydaje mi się.
Że zaraz nas czuje.
A kogo немає, дивіться, є Городинська.
Олександр, вже більше вас є.
Ні, вже всі.
Так, не всі могли підключитися.
Ну, а не всі змогли.
Було б добре, якби ми всі зменшилися до одного масштабу, щоб ми не плуталися.
А, до одного.
Нічого,
то це зменшується.
але ви бачите.
Олександр, а чому твоє питання не підігнав? Скільки? Чи ще один
Ні, зараз не прийшов, зараз
Я думаю, що проблема з нашим зв'язком, має бути ідеальний там зв'язок.
Ні, отут тільки четверо зайшло.
Цю кімнату.
Дітей. Один Олександр. П'ятеро. Я їх п'ятеро.
Could you click on that?
Я студентів просто.
Це зараз ми в ефірі.
So I'm looking at the PC now through your eyes, so I can see what you're seeing. Yeah. So if you hold this control button, and then press this trigger. See? Okay, so now go to this controller. Sorry, I can't see it. If we can lift it up. Yeah.
And there's only
See these first two buttons. You have two buttons on the side.
You can make
Oh
it.
God.
Yeah, one.
This is like kind of like the building, so representing, I think the building represents our university. Actually, like they're simplified together. So you can use that.
Joystick, that's the right. So with your phone, two joystick. Yeah. Do you see like
the two inner ones at the moment. When you just grab both.
you make that.
And then
Is this curve on there?
She should
This-
just laugh.
That's it? So,
it is.
So,
Oh, yeah.
so the transparent ball is a selection, and then the other ball is the.
And then it's sizes. Yes.
Oh, if you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
if you know, click the front. Yeah, there you go. Click it and hold, draw.
Nie, zaraz nie były wrzucone predmety, bo chcę zaświetać, tak? Jest?
That's it. So that's your quick selection.
You can, if you move forward, backward, kind of swing.
And then use that to select it. Touch that with what you just drawn.
But it looks like a real bike.
It does.
Make it transparent.
It was nice see-through. Yeah.
He's trying to teach, he needs to see everything. But I don't understand.
You should say select it. And you click the trigger aside to grab the screen.
It's like being in a room. It's beautiful. Shaking my demons.
It's tricky.
It's very good.
You don't have any questions?
They might get adjusted.
Are you using the app?
And so I.
Everyone try to mute yourself in the collab room. So we will use the Blackboard audio so it won't have like echoing and feedback.
Oh, should we mute, we can mute here. Shall we mute it?
I think we'll use the Blackboard audio is better because
Yeah.
like if you guys are sitting really close to each other, it will be feedback.
Yeah, Blackboard's
So
good.
let's-
We're gonna mute our audio. Yeah. So you won't
Cool,
hear
like
us.
all headset mute.
Yeah. It's actually really good.
Hi everyone, I'm Mariah. I'm just kind of shadowing this call until a bit later. I'll give a presentation then. Until then, if everyone could unmute the Blackboard call, that way we can use the Blackboard audio to communicate with each other. And then if you could just mute your headsets, so when you're in the collab room with Charmaine and Karthik, you can mute your headset by looking at your left hand or your non-drawing hand, and there should be a microphone that you can mute. That's what Charmaine was talking about with the feedback. But until then, if you could unmute the call, that would be great.
Okay, thanks. If you could you show how to unmute?
Yeah. So
Headset view.
so once you're in the collab room, Charmaine, is everyone in the collab room, or am I getting ahead of everyone?
Okay, so if everyone can listen, this is how you unmute, how you mute your headset, because otherwise we're going to have sound coming through the headset. So if you just listen to Mariah, is it Mariah talking?
It is. Hi. So I might be getting ahead of everyone. I'm not sure if everyone's in the collab room yet, but once you are in the collab room, if you look at your left hand or your non-drawing hand, there should be a little button, and if it's muted, it'll show up a microphone, a red microphone, and if it's unmuted, it'll be a green microphone. So you just want to make sure that microphone is red. It's on the left hand controller.
You have to tilt that controller, is that right?
I believe so, yes.
So if you tilt
And there
it
should
to
be
the
the button on the left hand as well. You can just press that.
to mute it. Just mute it. Yeah, everyone got that? Just tilt your controller to the side. Yeah, and then there should be a little menu pops up with audio.
And then Alexander, I think that your call is still muted. If you'd like to unmute that, just so we can communicate, because I'm not in the collab room, so I can just kind of listen in and make sure everything's going all right.
Yeah, well we've got the Blackboard Collaborate currently open, audio open. Can you
Okay.
hear us?
I think so. Could you say something one more time?
Yeah, yes, so we've got the audio from the Blackboard Collaborate.
Awesome. Yeah. So I see the IADT group has their mic on. So if Alexander, you don't mind unmuting.
Oh yeah, Alexander, yeah. Alexander could unmute as well, so we could hear yeah, unmute Alexander, so we can hear so they can talk to us.
Олександр, скажіть, що ви говорите, ми не чуємо. Ми не чуємо, що ви говорите. Включіть мікрофон, що ви говорите, повинні чути.
In this moment, I speak with my students. If you can add one more student.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Just share the email and I will add them.
Yes. One moment.
Yep. I think David is still unmute in the collab room. So, like.
Yeah. Tilt your controller to the side, and then can you see a little pop-up audio on here? This control, and you tilt this to the side, and you see like a little pop-up. Shows the audio. Shall I have a look? Is this your headset?
Look, I have one question.
Погано чути.
Hi, did you say you have a question, Alexander?
Yes, I have a question. When I create a new room in my profile, it's only for 4 students only, not more.
Charmaine, do you know how to change the permissions on that?
I think they should be able to join if they quit the app and join again.
Олександр, ви маєте на увазі, що коли ви свою кімнату створюєте, то тільки 4 студента може максимум бути, так?
Так,
В кімнаті.
я можу хоча б 10 вміщати, бо коли ми заходимо в інтерфейс оцього Gravity Sketch, там видно, що в кімнаті там 2 з 4 максимум у мене. Коли в цій спільній кімнаті, в якій ми зараз, я бачу, що там нас 7, скажімо, з 20.
Charmaine, Alexander means that when he creates the room, like a separate room within our account, our university account, he can add 4 students maximum to the room, and he doesn't know how to adjust the settings, so he can add more students to the room because he would like to allow at least 10 students to join one room. So,
I think that's happening because he's using his own room. If he joins our room, we've got the access for all the students.
But
yeah, I think you have to switch the org, like only the org with the university, and the accelerate projects could have like up to 20 people in the room. For any personal collab room, that could only be 4 people.
But it's not personal, but if it's like our university collab room, that you created an account for our university as well.
Yeah, it would be the same.
Only it's up to 4 people in the room?
No, it's up to 20.
Okay, thank you. Олександр, а ви де створювали ту кімнату? Під нашим університетським аккаунтом?
Я вже зрозумів, що в акселераті я можу 20, а я окремо створюю, тому, мабуть, 4.
Але в нашому університетському теж ви можете створювати до 20. Так само, там, де Юрій Фіскович University. Бачили, там у нас є?
Так, я зрозумів.
Коли ви дивитесь на лендінг-педі, там що воно дозволяє, от зараз
Я зрозумів, я створив у своєму workspace.
Так що це не ваш workspace має бути, а там може бути do you repeat national. Okay, thank you, Charmaine.
No worries. I guess like Kartik could start now for the like beginning like tutorial.
Shaman, just give me 1 second.
Charmaine or Mariah?
Yes.
Well, one of the things we find quite disorientating is understanding, especially when you're in the collab room, understanding who's talking and how to get the best view, especially when you're in the VR headset.
Yeah.
So it's good to have a little talk about best ways to teach in the collab room when especially for the people in VR headsets.
Yeah, I think it would be good that maybe Kartik, we can first like take through them about like how we could like switch books, and then we can like when talk about like the best practice in collab room, maybe like we have to mute first, like who should get the crown, something like that.
Exactly, and also
So
maybe times when it's best for everyone just to lift their headsets up and just watch the screen and then put their headsets back on. Like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise we lose people because people just end up not following along and just.
So when you open landing pad, you should see a tab at the bottom which says if you've logged in, you should see at the bottom it says which organization you're using. Is one of you in the headset?
Yeah.
So when you open the app first.
Yes.
Yep. I'm talking to Alexander in Ukraine, so he's complaining about not being able to change the room, right? Has everyone in Ukraine gotten into the right room?
Олександр, всі зайшли в кімнату? Зайшли всі в кімнату?
Так, всі зайшли в кімнату.
Because there's a second.
Only one student's not entered because he have problem with internet.
Ага, один не може, бо не може.
Проблема з інтернетом, але всі
Почекаємо?
всі є. All is good.
Yep. So when you guys have entered, so in terms of best practices for using Collab, I think everyone except the person with the crown should be on mute. Has everyone figured out how to mute their headsets?
If you could show us inside your headset how to do that, or if we got an illustration, because trying to explain it is quite tricky. It'd be nice to see it.
Олександр,
Yeah, just 1 second.
Виключили звук в окулярах. У вас у всіх виключений?
Там зменшити треба, так? Мінус.
Ми спеціально виключили звук, тому що ми на комп'ютері трансляцію слухаємо вас, бо коли ми включаємо і там звук, у нас іде подвійне транслювання. Але ми випробовували цю систему, нам дуже сподобалося, ми в різних місцях працювали одночасно через цей звук, дуже зручно.
Але ви виключили вже його зараз, так?
Виключили звук, щоб подвійний звук не йшов із комп'ютера і з окулярів.
They already muted the headsets, but they...
The microphone, not
the microphone, but Lisa, now I think they even muted the sound because they are listening, they have the like this presentation as well in collab, so they heard multiple sounds. They're wearing headsets and they're watching the presentation at the same time, so...
Charmaine, I think a good feature would be to be able to mute everyone, to have like a way to mute everyone in the
Yeah, I think
when
whoever has the crown could do it. And I think currently, Chris, you have the crown for the room.
Okay, I'm not actually in my headset, but can we pass the crown on to?
Yeah, pass to Brad, maybe. I think Brad is just joining us. We're all in the room GS. And he could like tether his headset and show us like how to switch org and also the best practice in the collab room.
That'd be great. How do we pass the crown? Hey, Brett, you're up early.
How's it going?
Early. This is.
I'm looking at everybody. Прикольно, мене теж на лінії тільки треба не вказувати. Ваня вас додав.
Там з ними чи ще?
А як фото?
У мене Вау, а як ви текстури зробили? Чи ви зробили?
Вам треба загрузити текстури і тоді можете робити.
Ми пододавали деякі.
Тут нема шару. Хамення.
Каменя був. Вон там є. Вже, напевно, пройшла. Там біля мене зліва від вас, там толкан.
Now we work with textures. Textures, right? Коли все падає виходить.
Just a bit of news through. Stretch it.
Може перегрузити, знаєш?
Okay.
Can everyone just look at the screen really quick and just tell us if you're able to see Brett's screen here in his view from Gravity Sketch?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, we can get started then.
Що? Зробимо фотку? Ой, надо що? Everybody here doing a photo?
А як включити тепер? Бо я вас бачу якось.
Ну це логічно. О, Настя, ви до мене приземляємося. Тільки щоб була ваза блискуча.
Ці пташки, вони, скажи, як на це мистецтво. Вікторич, ваші малюнки везуть.
О, дивіться, бачите? Але воно якось ландскейп якийсь показує.
Бачите, на дерево, якась звірюшка, собачка.
Дивіться, собачка.
Ліста, собачка, ніжу бачу.
Right, you can start anytime.
Yeah. Okay.
А як тут, наприклад, ходити?
All right.
Збільшуйте, зменшуйте, пересувайте лівою рукою, нижньою клавішою, хапайте, пересувайте. Лівим джойстиком, нижня клавіша, оберніть до себе ладоні, бачите? Біла, нажимайте, хапайте, підтягуйте до себе. Але це простір сунеться, а де сунеться.
Okay, guys. So can everyone see the screen?
Yes, so
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so it seems like you guys got a chance to enter Landing Pad Collab. That's going to be the multiplayer version of Gravity Sketch, but there's a couple of other things that we should establish. When you first enter the home screen, it's very important that you understand organizational structure. So by default, you'll be in your own personal workspace. This is something that no one else can access unless you share some of your work. That's going to say Brett's workspace, Mariah's workspace, your own personal workspace. In order to collaborate with other people, you're going to need to switch the appropriate organization and then enter Landing Pad Collab. So for instance, when I click on Landing Pad Collab, you'll see that I can join any rooms available in this organization. But another important thing to note is you can actually customize your avatar before entering the room. So you guys may have noticed that you could have had some random names or random colors. If you simply enter your own nickname before the room, this is going to make it a little bit easier to actually communicate with each other and see who's in the room. Okay, perfect. Just for this demonstration purposes, I'm going to be working a new sketch. So as single player, but later in the call, we'll re-enter Landing Pad Collab and then be in the GS room.
Brett?
Yeah.
Can I just say at that point, where you change your name, there's also an option to mute your microphone before you go in the room, is that right?
Yeah, here, let's take a look. So when you look at the avatar, that's a great shout. You can actually mute yourself. Let's see. Okay, I see. Yeah, so you can change the microphone settings to how it actually outputs. But I think you actually need to enter the room in order to mute the microphone, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so once you've figured out the actual microphone settings, you can open up the sketch. And once you're actually inside of the room, you'll see on your non-drawing hand controller. And by non-drawing hand, I mean your non-dominant hand. So for me, that would be my left hand. The blue and purple icons on this controller is the non-drawing hand. And you'll see that there's a microphone icon here. I'm going to physically intersect my drawing hand controller until you see the wand, and then click with my index finger trigger to turn this on and off. Okay. By the way, that interaction that we just described, that's going to be applicable for any settings icons in Gravity Sketch. So intersecting my drawing hand wand and then pressing with my trigger, my front trigger on my drawing hand, to select icons. Okay, perfect. Yeah, and the way that I'm entering a sketch, physically intersecting my drawing hand until I see the wand or the haptic feedback, and then pressing with my index finger trigger to select icons. Okay, so upon entering this room, it's kind of this vast virtual space. It probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense at first, so let's establish a bit of how to move. With your non-drawing hand controller, again, that's going to be your non-dominant hand, you can press the middle finger trigger to pan around the scene. So keep an eye on that green line. I'm actually moving farther and farther away from it by only pressing the middle finger trigger on my non-drawing hand. This is how I can simply just walk around the scene. But the issue with this is that I'm taking really, really small steps. So if we draw some objects here as a reference, you'll see that I'm taking really small steps around this object. If I wanted to take larger steps, or zoom in for instance, I could press both middle finger triggers at the same time to either bring them out from each other to zoom myself in, or bring them close to myself in order to zoom myself out. Now I can combine those interactions to actually get really, really close to my object or really far away. The way you can do that is by moving your non-drawing hand controller out, grabbing the scene, and then zooming yourself in to where that object is positioned. So again, I'm moving my controller out, grabbing the scene, and then pulling myself close to the object. Once you get comfortable with that interaction, it's going to be a really important thing to use throughout your Gravity Sketch workflow. So just one more time, I'm zooming myself out, and you'll see how far I can actually move away from the object. I'm grabbing how far I want to be in the scene, and then pulling myself close to where that object is. Okay, perfect. Let's establish one other thing. So by default, your drawing hand will be on your right hand, and your non-drawing hand will be on your left. But for the left-handed people in this crowd, you may need to rotate your controllers out and tap the ends together to change the interface. Now you'll see that the red button and color wheel button is on my left hand, and my blue button and purple button are on my right hand. This is the correct interface for someone left-handed. Since I'm right-handed, I'm going to move that back, and now I have the correct orientation. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so you'll find yourself really starting to pan and zoom at the same time. So it's generally a combination of doing both. You'll see that I'm actually grabbing both of my middle finger triggers to both pan and rotate around the scene and actually zoom in and out. Okay. Well, how do I start drawing? You know, now Gravity Sketch isn't only a navigation software. So the way that I can start drawing is pressing the index finger trigger on my drawing hand. But if I only press it down, I'm just going to be creating small points. I actually need to hold that down and move my controller through space to start creating a sketch. Now, as long as I'm holding down this line, I'll continue drawing. As soon as I'm done drawing, all I have to do is simply let go. And now the sketch is completed. I can keep sketching around this, keep moving around the scene, and keep drawing different things. I can also change the color of an object by selecting it or grabbing it. The way that I'm grabbing is by intersecting my grab sphere or that transparent ball over an object until it highlights red, grabbing it by pressing the middle finger trigger while intersecting it, and now I can grab the object. While I'm actually grabbing an object, I can do a couple of different things. I can change the color. I can grab it and then scale it by pressing both middle finger triggers at the same time. And instead of scaling myself, I'm scaling an object. I can also delete it by grabbing it and then pressing the red button. And I can undo by pressing the red button again. It's a very important thing to note that in order to actually manipulate geometry, you need to select it first. And again, by select, all I mean is grabbing it. So if I wanted to change the color of something, I would need to grab it first and then change the color. If I wanted to delete something, I need to grab it and then delete it. Or another interaction that we can introduce is editing objects. Let's see, just to clear it up a little bit. Let's say I wanted to start editing these points. If we take a look, what I did before is I just drew some lines in the scene. Let's say I'm not super happy with this work. I wanted to edit it a little bit further. I could grab the object, and instead of pressing the color wheel or red button, I'm going to press the blue button. So again, all I'm doing is selecting the object and pressing the blue button to get all of these different points that now show up on the line. What these points mean is additional ways to actually influence this geometry. So the same way I'm grabbing other objects, I can grab points and move them around the scene. so I can start editing the shape a bit further. Now, another thing I can do, if you take a look at this object, you'll see that there's actually a ton of points here. It can be a little confusing, might feel a little overwhelming at first as well. While I'm in edit mode for an object, I can actually press the purple button. You'll see that it has 3 lines showing. This will signify that I can open up a panel for settings. You'll see that I have all of these different options to influence this object. So I can actually change the shape of my line after the fact. I can also simplify points of my object. So take a close look. We see a lot of points right now. If I select simplify points, we'll continue reducing the amount of points on the selection while still trying to maintain a bit of that gestural work that we had. Now, let's say I've taken this too far, I'm not happy with it anymore. I can actually press the red button or the undo button to go back to my initial settings here. Okay, and then in order to hide the panel, let's say I don't want it anymore, all I have to do is press the purple button again, which will both either show the panel or get rid of it, while still staying in edit mode for the object. Now, some other cool things that you can do while in edit mode for an object. I can add more points. So let's say I needed a little bit more detail in an area. I can intersect that purple sphere over an edge and press the index finger trigger and actually start creating more points. So more places to add detail, and you really have the ability to add more refinement. I can also delete points. So let's say I have a little bit too much stuff here. I can grab a point and then delete it. Again, it's very important. If you want to actually affect a setting of an object, you need to grab that specific thing. So if I wanted to add a point, I would need to intersect this sphere around an edge and press the trigger. And vice versa, if I wanted to delete a point, I would need to grab that point and then press the red button. Now, a couple of other really cool things you can do. In order to reduce the amount of points that you have in an object, instead of adding a ton of different points, you can actually affect the settings of individual points. So if I grab a point like this and then move my drawing hand joystick up and down, I can change the tension of a point, or left and right to change the size. This is a really powerful tool because you don't have to add too much geometry onto a point in order to get some really interesting results. Again, simply grabbing the point and moving left and right to change the size, and up and down to change the tension. Okay, great. Any questions so far? Okay.
If you have an object that is selected, how do you duplicate?
How do you duplicate? Yeah. So if I drew any kind of object, in order to duplicate it, I have to grab it, and then while grabbing it, press the index finger trigger to copy and paste.
Okay.
The thing that's really powerful about this as well is I can select multiple objects at the same time. So if I wanted to change the size of my grab sphere, I would move my joystick up and down, and if I wanted to change the size of my cursor, I can move that right or left. So now I can get a bigger stroke or a bigger or smaller selection sphere. So if I wanted to select all of these lines at the same time, I can increase the size of my grab sphere, hover over the objects, grab them, and I can even duplicate all of these lines like this. Okay, great. So let's cover a couple of other things. We've talked a bit about navigation, a little. What was that? Sorry, I didn't know if that was a question.
So one more question. When you have a line and many points in this line,
Is it possible to connect 2 points?
first and last points together connect?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's say I have a line here and you're talking about this gap right here. Could we connect those points? The way that you can do that is by going into edit mode for the line, opening up your panel, and you'll see that there's an option called loop. If we turn that on, you'll see that this actually becomes one connected point, one connected object. So again, all I've done is gone into edit mode, opened up my panel using the purple button, and then turned off and on the loop icon.
It's doing only with first and the last, or in points in different.
Sorry, I didn't quite understand that.
2 points.
Can you connect 2 points?
Any 2 points.
And 2 points?
Not first and the last. Any of them.
Connect any of the points like this.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question. So you actually can't connect points like that, but thankfully there are some other options for achieving that result. So let's say you wanted to get like a really sharp line or something like that. Is that what you're saying? I suppose what you'd have to do is kind of just bring the points close together like that, or take advantage of changing the tension of a point. So for instance, I can select a point and then move my joystick up and down to change the tension. So you wouldn't be able to connect points like that, but you can still get a similar effect.
Олександр, це те, що ви хотіли спитати? Чи, можливо, не зрозуміли?
Yes, так, це воно. Thank you.
Скажіть, що ви зрозуміли, так?
Yes, we understand.
Okay, cool. So let's take a look at a couple of other things. If we press the blue button, you'll see that we have a ton of different options to choose from. Again, the only way I'm selecting these icons is by intersecting my controller, so physically moving my controller and then using my joystick here to select the icons. So if you look at save and export, this is going to be where we can, as the name suggests, save files and export files. The settings icon here is going to be for basic sketching and customizing your environment. So for instance, if I turn on the mirror icon here, take a look at what happens to my sketch line. It's now symmetrical and duplicated across the mirror plane. So any lines that I draw, anything I move around, will be shown on the other side of the mirror plane.
Brad?
Yeah.
Brad, I think we just lost. Have we lost them? Ukraine? Oh, we lost them. Yeah. They might have just had a. So can we just wait for them to come back?
Yeah, of course, no problem.
And they've got some power issues or internet issues.
Yeah, no problem. Maybe in.
But really good so far, Matt. Thanks very much.
Okay, perfect.
That's cool. They might have just dropped out. Let's see if they reconnect quickly. If not.
Окей.
Ні, вони відновлюються. Проблема з підключенням.
Це взагалі мега круто, що
I think they're back.
Okay.
Yes, we back. Bad connection with Ethernet.
Okay, sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so if we go back to the settings panel, if I press the blue button, We have save and export, which again is just saving and exporting files. If we go to the settings icon, we have different settings that we can choose from that will affect the actual environment. So if I turn mirror on, you'll see that our sketch lines are now duplicated on the other side of the mirror plane. So when we move objects, change the color, scale, it's all reflected on the other side of the mirror plane. Another cool setting to explore is vertical lock. So if I press the blue button and then select the icon next to it, vertical lock is basically allowing us to be positioned completely vertically in the scene. So I'm not really able to go under objects. However, if I turn this setting off, I can actually rotate myself under objects and appreciate the entire perspective of what I'm creating. This is why navigation is such an important feature. Again, if you're only seeing an object from one view, it's easy to not fully appreciate the object that you're creating. So that's why navigation is so important, because I can really start exploring like every nook and cranny of the object that I'm developing. And once you get more comfortable with VR as well, turning off vertical lock to now really just start moving around. Okay, we can also import assets into Gravity Sketch. So when I click on reference images and scroll to the right, you'll see that I have a couple of different images that Gravity Sketch provides inside of the tool, as well as the reference library. These are actually going to be assets that you can use to apply different materials to objects. If I remember from the collab room you guys were working in before, it seems like some people were already messing around with that feature. So if I go to Images, Reference Library, these are all the folders that Gravity Sketch provides to actually import different images. So for instance, I can go to Material Textures and grab an image by intersecting my grab sphere over the image, grabbing it, and then dragging it into the scene. I can close my panel as well by pressing the blue button. And now I have this image here in the sketch. You'll notice as well that it's kind of locked to the scale, no matter how much I move around. That's going to be a feature only available in a single sketch, like a single player mode sketch. And it can be a useful thing for like mood boards and references, but is a really distracting feature in a collaborative room. If you don't love this feature in a single player sketch, you can grab the image, and while grabbing it, press the blue button to anchor the image to your scale. Now, if I wanted to apply that image to an object, similar to what you guys were doing in Colab, let's say I grab a cube, for instance. So I'm pressing the purple button and going down to Primitive Objects, opening the panel and making sure I have the cube selected. I can create a cube by pressing my index finger trigger on the drawing hand. Now grab the object, press the color wheel button, and you'll see here at the bottom that I actually have that image that I can apply to the object. This is going to be true of any image that you actually drag into the environment.
Does it have a limit at all?
Got a question back?
Yeah.
Is there a limit of imported images as reference?
A limit? No, not to my understanding. I think you'd really have to apply and add like a lot of images to actually start receiving any kind of lag or trouble using the software. But I think for the most part you should be okay. There's been plenty of presentation rooms with a lot of assets that function really well.
Brad, one of the questions that came up earlier was, let's say you were making multiple objects like you've got there, 2 objects, and you wanted to export one as an FBX, say, just one object rather than the whole scene. Is that possible?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So here, let's see. I'm going to duplicate these objects, and I'll change the color so we can see. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and introduce the layer panel as well. So when I press the blue button and go to my layers, you'll see that we only have one layer right here, layer 1. That basically means that all of our objects are on the same layer. If I wanted to create new layers, I can press the plus icon, grab the object, intersect my controller on the layer until it highlights green, and then let go. Now you'll see that that's on its own layer. Also, what I'm doing here is simply changing the visibility or opacity of my objects. I can also rename layers. So for layer 1, I'm just going to call this wood. Layer 2, I'm going to rename to orange. And then layer 3, I'll just call mint. Now, let's say I wanted to export only the wood here. One way I could do that is turning off or completely changing the opacity of my other layers. Now the only visible layer here is the wood. So if I were to press the blue button, go to save and export, and then export the file, for instance as an OBJ, you'll see that none of the other objects in my scene are visible, only the wood now. So if you only wanted to isolate a layer and export that specific object, you would need to hide everything else. Now another quick way to do that, because imagine you had, a lot of different layers. It'd be a huge pain to have to hide every single one of these layers, right? It gets kind of old eventually. But thankfully, there's a really awesome trick for that. Because instead of having to hide individual layers, I can actually select the wood layer that I want to export. And you'll see when it's an active layer, that basically means that this magnifying glass is showing next to it. And now I can toggle a solo layer. So take a look at what happens. When I select this magnifying glass, all of the other objects in the scene are hidden, and the only thing that's visible now is my wood layer. And this is going to be applicable for exporting as well. So that's a really good thing to note. If you have a ton of different layers, you have a ton of different objects, you can actually isolate individual layers. Okay, perfect. Let's take a look at importing some other assets though. So if I press the blue button and go to prefabs, this is going to be the way that you can access 3D models. Now, by default, you'll be seeing built-in models. This is going to include a mannequin, face, rigged chassis for vehicle designs, and then 2 other human-scale mannequins that you can drag into the scene. Now, if I simply grab one of these mannequins and drag it into the scene like this, I don't know what scale I'm working at. This could be a completely arbitrary scale. Let's say I wanted to work at 1:1 scale, or really understand what I'm making. When I just drag it into the scene, I don't really know what size this is. I don't know how large or small it is. I can actually make sure that I'm importing geometry at 1:1 scale by, again, entering prefabs, grabbing the mannequin, and instead of just dragging it in, I'm going to drag it into this blue bounding box until it highlights green, and then let go. You'll see now the mannequin populates in the origin of my scene. I'm able to change the rotation along my X, Y, and Z. And once I'm happy with the position, I can press the blue check mark to import the model. This is a really powerful tool because if I were to zoom into 100%, and by the way, the significance of 100% is the fact that this is 1:1 scale with the real world. So let's take a look. If I zoom myself into 100% and position myself around the mannequin, you'll see that my controllers actually line up with that of the mannequin. So now if I were to start sketching around this. Sorry, what was that? Was there a question?
So, no, I think we're just translating.
Okay, no worries. So this is an extremely powerful tool now because everything that I'm sketching around my mannequin is actually at 1:1 scale. So this can be proportional to real-world dimensions.
Yes. Moja subject.
And again, all I'm doing here is simply sketching with the ink tool. I've changed the material to an orange toon material, and I have symmetry turned on. And now I can simply just start plotting in different lines and messing around with the object. But let's say I wanted to work around something else. Let's say I wanted to use like a 2D image or a 2D reference to sketch around. What I can do is press the blue button, go to Prefabs, Import Models. Instead of built-in, I'm going to import models here and then accessing the reference library. When I click on the reference library, these are similar to the reference library in our images panel, except for 3D assets now. So I'm just going to scroll to the last page, open up the footwear folder, and grab a shoe last. I'm going to grab the men's athletic 1. And the way that I can import this at 1:1 scale is simply clicking on the icon, seeing that it populates in the screen, and then pressing the blue check mark. Now I have a shoe last that is also at 1:1 scale with the real world. Now I want to grab an image and use that to sketch around this object. So I'm going to press the blue button, go back to reference images, and this time grab an image from Brett's workspace. Go to footwear, and I'm just going to grab this side view sketch that I have. The way you can access your own images is by importing them into Landing Pad, which is kind of like the Google Drive equivalent to Gravity Sketch, where you can upload and download different files. Now I'm going to anchor my image to the scene, scale it up by grabbing it and then holding my grab triggers, and then actually snap this image to my mirror plane. So by grabbing it and then intersecting it with the mirror plane like this, I can actually scale this around my shoe last. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go to my layers panel here, go ahead and delete all the layers I don't need. I got rid of my shoe last, 1 sec. There we go. Okay, I'm going to change the opacity of my shoe last. Oh, that's odd. Okay, cool. And now make a new layer for sketching. Now what we introduced before was sketching with the mirror plane and just starting to draw in space. What I want to do now is actually restrict my sketch lines to a plane. I can do that by pressing the purple button, opening up the tools menu for a specific tool, by selecting the ink tool and then pressing it again. And you'll notice that I have all of these different settings. I can change the actual shape of my stroke and all other settings like changing the actual way that I can draw. What I want to focus on now though is only the planar tool. So when I turn that on, you'll see that my sketch line is actually locked to a plane now. What we were doing before was sketching in space. Now this is locked to a plane. What I can do is actually start sketching around my image. So I'm going to press the blue button and turn off vertical lock because this is going to make for a more natural position for actually sketching. So now I can start plotting some lines around my shape here. Go ahead and change the color as well, actually.
Бачиш, як ти професійно малює. Не малює. За джойстиком всі португалу, які всі. Так, так, не вода. Лайки. Так, так. Звідки снизилось? Що ж, отак. Тут ти відчуваєш лінії, товщину.
Okay, cool. Go to my layer panel here, turn off my image, and you'll see that I actually have some really rough sketch lines that I've crafted around the shoe last. Now what I can do is I can bring these sketch lines out from the mirror plane. Now if I just grab these objects and then drag them away from the mirror plane, I can try to position them as closely as possible around the shoe last, but I'd be breaking the orthographic view of my image. So if I wanted to restrict these lines to an axis, what I could do is grab the objects, position my controller around the axes that I want to move it to. So in this instance, it's going to be the blue line or our x-axis, and then position my non-drawing hand controller around the axis like this, grab the object, and then move it away from the mirror plane. Now that's how we can start moving objects along our X, Y, and Z. So again, making sure I'm selecting all of my objects, positioning my controller completely upright or local to the direction of the axis, and then positioning my non-drawing hand controller underneath to restrict it to our X, Y, and Z. Perfect. So now you can go through the process of kind of moving these sketch lines. And try positioning these around the object to start creating a 3D sketch. Now, we kind of starting to get some understanding of the shape that we could create. But if I wanted to make this a more efficient process, instead of selecting individual points and trying to get them, or excuse me, individual objects and trying to get them positioned correctly, what I could do is actually grab all of these objects at the same time. Now, if you remember, if I grab a sketch line and press the blue button, I can get edit points for an object. But let's say I wanted to get the edit points for all of my sketch lines at the same time. I can increase the size of my grab sphere by moving my joystick up, grabbing all of the objects at the same time, and instead of pressing the blue button, I will hold it down and now create all of the edit points for my entire selection. Now, something to note as well, when I'm grabbing these points, I'm actually not able to move them freely in space. They're locked to the plane that we created them on. So to remove that, I can press the purple button and select Remove Planarity. Now I can move these points anywhere in space.
Я обов'язково подам. Не так він скаже. Але Саша на ній нам все скаже. Я пишу в кінці.
Okay, great. Yeah, so now I have a pretty basic framework to actually start building off of. I have a really, really rough sketch around the shoe last, and if I wanted to, I could spend the time refining the sketch. So if I go back to my layers, you'll see that I have my sketch layer here, which we can rename. I can actually create a new layer, and I'm going to go ahead and call this stroke. I can lock my sketch layer, reduce the opacity, and now start sketching using the stroke tool. So I have this really, really nice rough understanding of the form that I'm creating. Now I can press the purple button, go to the stroke tool, open up the tool menu here, and select point mode. What point mode is going to allow me to do is individually plot points using a stroke. So I can start here, press the index finger trigger to start creating points, and now very cleanly start creating a wireframe sketch. If I want to end my sketch in point mode, I can press the non-drawing hand front trigger, and I will finish my sketch. Again, navigating around the scene.
Fred?
Yeah.
Right, we've got a question.
Yeah, of course.
Can you change the type of your curve? Because now you use interpolate curve. Can you use polyline, for example?
Could you use what?
Okay.
Sorry, it's a little difficult to hear.
Yeah, of course. Can you change the type of your curve? Because now you use interpolate curve. And can you use polyline, for example, as well?
Huh. Yeah, so if I'm understanding correctly, what you can do is you can actually change the shape of the curve as well. So what I'm using right now is the stroke tool. What I was using before was the ink tool. So with the ink tool, it has a natural taper to the line. Yeah, so it actually will kind of like taper towards the end. With the stroke tool, it won't taper at all. It'll be like one consistent line throughout. But also with the stroke tool, you can use the point mode, input mode, which is basically what's allowing me to create very precise incremental points on this line. Another thing as well is I can enter edit mode for this point, for this sketch, I mean. Press the purple button to open the panel, and I can actually change the shape of the stroke. Let's find a different color, be a little bit easier to see. Yeah, you'll see right now, this is a square stroke. What was before was a round stroke, so we can switch between round, square, and diamond. Yes, you have a lot of flexibility to make interesting shapes like that. Okay. Yeah, so while you're in edit mode for this point, you can again change the tension of points to better represent the shape you're making. You can also change the size to achieve like a sketchier, stylized look. You can bridge points in the middle of the mirror plane by just bringing them along the mirror like this. Okay, and if we turn off our sketch lines, now we see that we have a really, really basic but still clearly communicated sketch of a shoe. Let's explore some other options very quickly, and then we'll head into Colab. You guys need to experience this for yourself. It's a much better learning experience as well. So once we have this really basic wireframe sketch, I can create a new layer. I'm going to go ahead and call this volume. If I press the purple button and go down to the volume tool, change the color, what I can do is actually start filling in the volume of this shoe. All I'm doing is holding down my index finger trigger and starting to fill in the shape of this this model. Okay. So this is just one way to explore the actual shape that I'm creating. I'm adding volume to this wireframe sketch and just trying to visualize what this can actually look like with some form. But just for the sake of time and for you guys to actually jump into the headsets, I want to show you a couple of things in Colab and then challenge you guys to actually create some objects. So I'm going to leave the sketch by pressing the blue button, pressing the Save and Export icon, and then exiting to Lobby. I'm going to go back to Landing Pad Colab, and I'm going to enter the GS room. However, before I do that, as a reminder, make sure to change your name. It'll be a bit easier to communicate. And feel free to change the color as well. Going to enter GS. Great, seems like there's some people in here. Awesome. So just a couple of tricks for when you're in Landing Pad Colab. First of all, make sure that you're muted. We'll make sure to be talking through the video call. Another great thing you can do is pressing the blue button, going down to Online Users, which is going to be the third icon from the bottom. And if I select a name, like Charmaine, for instance, I can actually teleport to where they are inside of the scene. So if you guys hear me talking or you feel like you got lost in this room, press the blue button, go to Online Users, and then select a name. Also, just for the sake of cleaning this stuff up, I think let's try these objects. Okay, cool. So just on a final note before we enter Colab, I want to challenge you guys to try and make a snowman. So if you press the purple button and go down to Primitive Objects, open up the panel, you can select the sphere icon. Now, with the sphere, all I have to do is hold down my drawing hand and I can create a sphere like this. Go ahead and make one here, grab the object and duplicate it, scale it down, do that again for the third here. You can duplicate this again, scale it down even farther, and change the color. Make some eyes.
We've done this before.
Oh, have you guys done this before? Okay. Misunderstanding. Okay, well, feel free to make this one.
That's a coincidence. That's a coincidence.
Okay, okay.
You're making it look easy.
Perfect. You can also go to Primitive Objects and make a cone. That's so funny. I can change the actual size of the cone as well. So going into edit mode, I have two arrows here. Can also make some twigs. So just going to the stroke tool and changing the color. I can group objects together by grabbing them and pressing the purple button. Now this is one selection, and I can duplicate this on the other side. Now you have a pretty nice snowman. You can make a top hat as well. So if I go to the primitive objects and make a cylinder, go ahead and change this to black. And there you guys go. Okay, perfect. I will, yeah, so feel free to jump into Landing Pad Collab. We can mess around with the tool, and feel free to challenge yourself to the snowman if you haven't already. And yeah, I'll see you guys in this room.
Brad, I just have a question there about primitives. Hello?
Yeah.
If you take anything and you want to scale it non-uniformly, how do you do that?
That's a great question. So unfortunately, you can't scale things non-uniformly. So for instance, there's a couple of different tricks. So for instance, let's say I had an image. Well, I want to scale this image along my X, Y, or Z, for instance, but I can't. It's locked to that proportion. What I could do is I can actually map that onto an object that does scale, like a cube, for instance. So when I apply the image now, if I go into edit mode, I can actually scale that image using another object. That's one trick. But another trick as well is, again, unfortunately, you can't scale non-uniformly. But for instance, yeah, let's say I had like some sketch lines. Let's say I had some sketch lines like this. If I grab this and try to scale it, it's going to break the mirror plane, right? Although it's staying uniform, it's still going to break through the mirror plane. If I wanted to scale this proportionally, but making sure it was on the mirror plane, I could access the tool belt menu. So pressing the blue button, going to settings, beta, and making sure that I have the tool belt enabled. Once I have that enabled, I can grab the middle finger trigger on my drawing hand and slide across the screen. You'll see a couple of different tools that you can choose from. We're only going to focus on the second one from the left, the precision move tool. I can grab my object by intersecting it, pressing my drawing hand front trigger, pressing it again to actually localize my gizmo on the origin, and then scroll using my joystick to change this and scale this proportionally along that axis. I can also rotate objects using this.
Can you repeat how you're doing this?
What's that? Sorry, what was that?
Could you repeat how you're doing?
Yeah. Sorry, that was a lot of information at once. But basically, I pressed the blue button, clicked on Settings, Beta, made sure I had the tool belt enabled. Once I have that enabled, hold down the middle finger trigger on my drawing hand and slide my controller across the screen. Grabbed the precision move tool, which is the second one from the left here. Make sure I'm grabbing it the entire time, intersecting this with my object, pressing the index finger trigger twice to localize this gizmo, and then selecting the axes to either rotate it or scale it along an axis. And if I wanted to change something along an axis, really the best bet that you'll have is grabbing the edit points and then using Smart Move to move them along the axis, like this. Okay, perfect. Yeah, are there any other questions I can answer in VR? If not, we can jump into Colab. Okay, I'll take that as a Colab. I will see you guys here.
Розкриваємо посела світло, у них є щось. У нас не є. Юра, взагалі. Зараз я. Oh no, I can unhear this. Oh, you should. I was just wondering if we've got a stand so we're going to cover them before. I know.
We have bad connection with internet.
Олександр, вони зараз всі просто пробують сніговичків зробити. Якщо можете, теж під'єднуйтеся в цей канал і теж нас зробити.
Together working.
Так, просто разом працюєте, бачите, от як всі роблять на цьому, я не знаю, чи ви бачите.
Бачимо.
Спробувати теж, якщо у вас вистачає цього зв'язку.
Just a reminder as well for anyone in VR. If you press the blue button and click on the settings icon, so the gear icon, and then go to sketching aid, the arrow that's pointing up, that's going to be vertical lock. If you turn that on, you might have a more comfortable experience for your first time, or at least for the first couple of times. Yes, so David, if you just try pressing the arrow, it should be this one here. That could feel a little bit more comfortable.
Количество носка на моменты не себе а что все равно жаль замечательно. Что за буддийское? Расставили палочки.
Christmas. Roland, are you making this? Making a knife through?
Brett's making ice cream.
Oh, okay.
No,
it's okay.
I'd like to eat these.
That's actually another fun exercise.
I'm just making a very fluffy smell out of there.
Це вона, значить, це якщо скреві зробилося. Але я хто малює.
Someone making a Christmas tree.
Все, Happy New Year. Ялинку хто має? Там видно, бачиш, слово. Шмелі бахну. Шармель. Не зачем. Там це шармель. Бородинська. Чи це звання Володькосню? А то там на ялинці можна бути чуть-чуть надути всяких дерев. Може нам не знати.
Yeah.
Is there a way of making like, so I made a sphere and then accidentally I made another sphere inside,
Yes.
right? Is there a way of blocking that option so that like, you know, it's a solid?
A solid. Let's see. So if you accidentally create overlapping objects, you can zoom in and delete the second one, or press the back button. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I was just wondering if there's a way of kind of like, you know, just blocking it. So like when you're exporting it, you don't have, you know, a shape within the shape. That makes no sense.
Yeah. I think you just. Yeah. I don't know if you can block it within the software, but you can definitely just try to prevent that, you know, by being a bit more careful in the way you're drawing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool that it's actually buzzing when you're doing it, so you know you placed another object, right?
Yeah.
How do you group again?
So you'll grab the objects and then press the purple button while grabbing them.
Grab the button by Okay. Nice.
Yeah. That's just my. It's a. Я нічого працюю не бачу.
Nice. This is awesome. That's so cool.
You can't group multiple times, can you? You can go to one group.
Sorry, was that a question?
Yeah, so I've grouped elements of my snowman. I'm trying to group the entire snowman, right? So, but it doesn't let me do that.
Thank you, Brad. It's so sweet.
Олександр, можете більше сказати? Може, Настя хай скаже. Які враження від тренінгу? Олександр, ви чуєте?
Так, ми чуємо.
От те, що ви писали мені в групі.
Look, this lesson is very good for us because last day we try choose any tools, but today we know more about them, and we Brad, you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We have one question. When we lost internet, you doing something with brown lines when you open many tools in one.
Yeah.
You remember?
Let's see. So there was a couple of things I went over. So I feel like maybe that was planar sketching. Did you guys see that?
Yes, I see.
Okay. Yeah, so there was a couple things. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I went over planar sketching, so locking sketch lines to a plane.
Yeah.
Also using smooth.
I'm sorry, they saw this. They just didn't see that part where you were moving your
when you were scaling the X, Y, and Z, and you know, using
Yeah,
it like in.
okay.
You doing
Gotcha.
one
Yes.
more and open many tools in live.
Yes, okay. Yeah, okay. No problem. Yes, so what I was talking about was the tool belt. So if you press the blue button, go to settings, beta, you'll see tool belt is an option you can enable. Make sure that it's enabled. Once you have that, press the middle finger trigger, hold that down and slide your controller across the screen. You'll see all of these different tools here. Let me move it this way so you can see. What I was talking about was this tool here. It's called the Precision Move tool. The second from the left. You can select objects and then scale them proportionally like this. But note as well, when I just click it, do you see how the gizmo is off? It's just kind of like randomly placed on the object. If I press that front trigger twice, it'll show up in the origin of my selection, so then I can scale it along the mirror plane accurately, like this. I can also rotate objects like this.
Okay, we try doing.
Okay.
Ніби ти не довільно це вводиш нею, а тобі дають.
Brad, now we are all hungry because we saw the ice cream and now we all want to have some ice cream.
I'll keep that in mind for
We
next time.
want to eat banana.
No burgers.
We want to eat too.
That's awesome.
How do I just export that one model that I have and not every, if I hit the export now and select HPX, does it just export everything?
Yeah, so if you wanted to export something specific, if you remember, you can isolate a layer. So making it the active layer and then pressing the magnifying glass to toggle solo layer, then you'd only be exporting what's visible in the scene.
Yeah, let's see if I figure it out. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Hey guys, I have to hop off. Oh wait, actually no, sorry, I apologize. Yeah, that was premature.
It's 4 o'clock, so we'll have to.
We will have
Yeah, I think we can wrap up here.
Yeah.
And if Mariah is still here, she can give her like a short presentation about like graffiti sketch in education, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Just let me know when you guys are ready for that to start. And then, Brett, are you sharing your screen still?
Sorry.
Yes, I think I am here. Let me see.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much, Brad.
Thank you.
No, yeah, thank you guys so much. Yeah.
Hello.
And the students really appreciated the experience.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dave.
I think I'm just gonna leave because I don't know how to.
Okay. Can you see my screen or no?
Yeah.
We can. So,
Okay, you can see the gravity sketch education. Okay, give me just 1 second here. All right. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Mariah. If we haven't met yet, I'm an education account manager at Gravity Sketch. So I work with our university partners on any of their efforts to incorporate Gravity Sketch into their curriculum or just at the school in general. I've worked with a few of you already, I believe. So nice to see you again. And yeah, I think you just wanted to hear a bit more about what the education program does. So I have a short presentation and a very short video for you on that. Okay. So we work with just under 200 universities worldwide. These are some of our key education partners pictured here. And we're really taking the approach on honing in on our strongest partnerships, and we're really looking forward to supporting you all more as we move forward in the school year. So how the education program works, we provide free business licenses to staff and students. That includes 20-person collab rooms, additional import and export capabilities. You can manage your own accounts and users. And then we also provide free tailored demos and workshops like we're doing today with product experts to upskill staff and students. And then we also have tech support, troubleshooting support, and we support implementing Gravity Sketch into curriculum based on our experience and learnings with the other universities that we've had the opportunity to do that with. And if I'm going too fast at any point, just let me know. I talk a little fast sometimes. And then, yeah, we also have a certification program that we're currently revamping. So right now, we don't have a certification pathway, but it is in the works. So once that's fully operational again, I'll be blasting out that to everybody to let them know how to go about it for anyone who's interested. And then we also have a self-service resource hub, which we continually update. And then we can also make custom tutorials based on any needs that you have or unique workflows, anything like that. One of our initiatives is the Student Ambassador Program. So this year, I think we had about 130 applicants or students who were admitted to the program. And what that looks like is the students complete 50 hours of training in Gravity Sketch over the summer, and then they receive a free Oculus 2 headset. They're paid for their training, and they receive a merch bundle. We also provide customer masterclasses. So basically, we have industry professionals come in and show how they use Gravity Sketch in their workflows, and then they also can just chat with these industry professionals and get any questions answered about what it's like after graduation, different things like that. And then there's also the spring showcase. So you can see on the right here what that kind of looks like. The students create presentation rooms to show off their projects, and then we post all of these projects on our website, and we push that out to all of our industry partners as well, just to create some opportunity for these students. And this is some of the places that the student ambassadors have gone to after graduation using Gravity Sketch in their jobs. And then I do have a quick video here that just kind of highlights what we've been doing with other schools in the last year or so. Let me know if you can't hear the audio on this. I might have to change some settings.
No audio.
No audio.
No audio? Let me see. How about now? Thumbs up, thumbs down. And it's buffering. Sorry, give me 1 second to figure this out. Pausing one more time just to check if you can hear the audio now.
We cannot. We cannot.
No audio?
No.
Sorry.
If it's on YouTube,
We can actually watch it on our end, just.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could send you the link here in the chat if that works, and then I'll try to figure out how to change the audio input.
it's got the. It's like the
It's only like 3 minutes long, so shouldn't take too long, but there is the video. If anyone has access to the chat there. And then Charmaine, do you know how to change audio input?
Can you actually open it?
I haven't done it on Blackboard before.
I'm not sure if it will work.
In the chat there. Yeah, if we just open it and watch it right now, do you mind, Mariah?
Yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not sure how to get these audio inputs changed.
Gravity Sketch, and there's Co-Create, and both are unique and special. For anyone that's teaching, the ability to see all of your students modeling those things real time is like, you can't do it with Rhino, you can't do it with Katia, you can't do it with anything else that I'm aware of. And so it's a super unique thing, and we should just share this with academics.
The greatest outcome for me as a teacher has been to see the steep learning curve of the students. Why I really love teaching in Gravity is because the skill level just goes up so fast. You know, normally over a semester you would spend about half a term just learning the software, and then at the end you could maybe do one project. And with Gravity, it's been it usually doesn't take me more than one class session, so 2 to 3 hours to get the students up and running in it. And so the greatest outcome for me is that within one lesson, the students can actually be creating 3D designs.
So I believe that this is going to take off, and that's why we are offering it. We want to stay a couple of steps ahead of industry and make sure our students are equipped with the latest tools and technology to enable them to be the best designers they can be.
This is something that just wasn't possible before, and suddenly modeling, when that was added to Gravity Sketch, for me that was a big game changer. That's where I told the students, okay, we're not just going to use Gravity Sketch just to kind of stay here and come up with different ideas and kind of validate proportions. We're actually going to stay a little while longer and try to develop the design to a higher fidelity before we bring it into our traditional CAD packages. We're starting to see that we could probably stay even longer with all the different tools that you've added over the past year. It's been tremendous.
There's a disassociation between like a 3D model and students that get it, looks right, versus having it be to scale, having you in the headset, like standing over the bike, being like, that's actually, the portions are accurate to kind of what I'm feeling here.
So again, the biggest benefit is just like you can prototype your design as you're creating it. And in Gravity Sketch, if I want to test a headroom, I just put the scale and I kind of look up, well, there's room there. Create a doorway, place a mannequin, make the mannequin fit in there. Doorway works now. It's that kind of stuff where you will never think about that if you were sketching it on paper. I think that's the biggest benefit that Gravity Sketch has. Even if you don't use it as a modeling program, just that kind of ability alone makes it worthwhile.
It's been really great. And a big reason why I am really latching onto Gravity is because you are really professionally engaged in this process, and I'm not getting that with other companies, not at all. But what makes Gravity such a strong partner is that you are providing an infrastructure to grow it and make it better and expand it, and that's key.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so that was the video I was trying to share. Yeah, so if you have any questions for me, just let me know. But that's kind of an overview of what we've been doing in the last year as we've expanded the education program.